Go ahead and share the link. What a huge night for AEW. What a huge night for WWE NXT. A legend may have passed, but wrestling is still very, very interesting here on a Wednesday night. War Games is this Sunday. Winter came, and we have a new AEW World Champion. And oh, by the way, what about this man called Sting? You better share that link with Sting. If you're with us live and you're not freaking out right now, I don't know if you have blood in your veins.
With an intro right now. My goodness. Off the chain right now.
Kev can sing without moving his lips.
It is a work night and I am jacked up.
God damn it. God damn it. Marcus has kids. I just woke up his kid. What's going on,
My
everybody?
daughter's awake.
It's WrestleZone on
She's
a Wednesday
waiting for
night. It is
Sting.
the WrestleZone wrap-up. I am joined by just three different people from Pennsylvania, all over the map here. We're taking it all over, all right? All right, Pittsburgh, Central PA, all over the map. I'm Kev Kellum with you in Chicago. We have the D'Angelo brothers, all right? So Marcus, so it's three ball people, and then John Clark with all the full head of hair. There you go, John. You can make fun of us for all night. Marcus and Dominic, they do the Two Dynamite Dudes with Attitudes. We felt, hey, this is a momentous AEW. We knew we were getting a pay-per-view on TV, so we got to bring them over. You can get their show on our same podcast feed every Friday and Saturday. So if you're like, I hate them talking about WWE all week, well, don't worry. We have an AEW only show for you there. And of course, we have NXT War Games this Sunday as well. So it felt like last week's NXT was the go-home show for this NXT War Games this week in terms of just the big send-off, right, John Clark? Because I think maybe NXT read the tea leaves and we're like, we're going to have a show, but we know what we're dealing with here, John.
Yeah, if everything that happened on AEW tonight would have been pre-announced, it would have been like 1,000 viewers for NXT.
A lot of people joining us for the first time. A lot of people signing off. Get your comments on screen if you're with us for the first time as well. Shout out where you're watching from. And if you can't watch the whole show, don't worry. You can watch it on demand on YouTube, Facebook, or download the podcast. All right. It's available on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Nightmare 3 says Winter is Omega. And people freaking out. Yes, Sting is all elite. People losing their minds about this. And this is something else. Let's get right into it. The main event just went off the air a few minutes ago on TNT. We will talk about Sting. He is now with AEW, rumored for months, but confirmed tonight. And they said on air that he signed a multi-year deal. We'll get into whether or not we think he's going to wrestle. We'll talk about all that. Yes, we don't worry, WWE fans. We will talk about NXT. And obviously, we're definitely going to have to touch on the unfortunate passing of Pat Patterson within the show. So plenty of things to touch on here. But AEW has a new world champion, Dominic. This was a banger main event. They sold it as something special. There were plenty of shenanigans. There were some issues tonight with AEW. The one adjective that I used to describe them was used so much tonight. Indulgence was dipped by every chip. Anyone who walked by the condiment table of creative said, I'm going to go in the indulgence dip there. And we got plenty of it. But we got a new AEW World Champion. Very violent, very fun, back and forth match. Lay it down for me. What did you think? Omega Moxley, did it deliver? Jon Moxley drops the AEW World title to Kenny Omega with the help of an executive from Impact Pro Wrestling. If you thought TNA was done, dude, what? This was crazy. Very violent match. Don Callis, well known to be connected with Kenny Omega. They did this at the last pay-per-view when Kenny Omega won the Eliminator tournament final. Put him on commentary. Then he gets involved in like a suplex into like a side heater thing, and they think maybe they're going to stop the match. Immediately, you and I are saying shenanigans. We're texting in the group that shenanigans. We're yelling shenanigans, John Clark. Shenanigans. It's your favorite Irish-themed pub crawl bar place down by the mall. Shenanigans. You can go get the potato skins. So this one is ridiculous. And Don Callis gets the microphone to Kenny Omega after he gets punched by Jon Moxley. And Kenny Omega uses it to hit him in the head. Doesn't pin him off that. Lays him out with a handful of very violent maneuvers. Actually, he's just been hitting with V-triggers all night. But it took a V-trigger and a one-winged angel that he nearly hit on him earlier. Jon Moxley, no longer the AEW World Champion. Kenny Omega and Don Callis run out of the place, getting yelled at by Tony Khan on camera, in character. Tony Khan is now the executive of the company, if you don't notice. They say his name a whole lot. And they ask him before he gets in the car and drives off, Kenny, what are you doing? What's going on here? He's like, you're going to find out on Tuesday. Well, Tuesday, we're on Wednesday night, Alex Marvez. And he says point blank, you'll find out on Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Kind of shocking. Very, very shocking stuff here. Very shocking ending. Marcus, wow, right?
That was something. And let me tell you, I think what they're going for here is a worked version of what Ric Flair did when he jumped to WWE with the WCW title. So I think they're doing a worked version of that, which is cool. It's Kenny Omega is saying, hey, I'm not AEW, I am Impact, and I've got your championship.
Sound off if you guys are with us. We have already people chiming in. Zach Borden. So is Kenny Omega in Impact Wrestling? What is going on, Dominic?
Well, man, it's wild because you know what? If you did watch Impact this past Tuesday, Carl Anderson made note that he had friends that Ethan Page was not aware of. And, Kenny Omega, Bullet Club, it's all kind of there. So it was the main event, 40 minutes? About right, and a lot of shenanigans.
I felt that was really great. I felt they put the main event in there about 8:22. It did have commercial breaks. I did see a lot of people complain about commercial breaks, but
that's going to happen.
TV, you're getting TV.
It's television, but
TNT was paying for this one tonight. Guys, they were paying.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they were. Well, State Farm too helped out a lot.
Great people at State Farm. When I was 16 years old, I bought a car. 60, I was a State Farmer's my insurance. Look at Jim Ross. Jim Ross, just come on, State Farm, send me a check.
But I thought that was fun. I think they achieved the end game. If they got there, it was a little shaky. A lot of outside fighting, which they plugged up to be like, hey, let's have a legit match here. But I guess that also plays into Kenny being a heel and not really adhering to what he was doing too. And ultimately, it seemed like Mox was turning heel. Crowd was booing at him. He was throwing chairs in, but then he just set him up for him to sit down and trade shots back and forth with Kenny, which I thought was a neat spot. And then stuff got a little hairy here and there. But ultimately, I feel they made it and it achieved its goal. What I would have liked to see more of a straight up match and then maybe a little bit of the shenanigans at the end with Don Callis. That would have made more sense to me instead of all that shenanigans in the match itself. But ultimately, I think they made it. Jon Moxley's promo before the match was awesome. His nod to Pat Patterson, everything like that. Really, really cool. Really good setup. Big fight feel. Ultimately, it made it, in my opinion. But they could have done little things differently for my case.
There were plenty of other things throughout the rest of the show that drove me crazy that I already mentioned. But John Clark, you're on NXT duty tonight. I'm always on AEW. It's always just usually me. But we had to bring in the D'Angelo boys here. You're completely outside of this thing. And I know there's some things you like about AEW and other things you don't. Objectively, on the outside, this is a lot going on in the main event if you're tuning into television. Objectively, you're watching NXT. You're having fun with it. But do you feel like, I'm not saying like, oh, do you feel bad you didn't watch the show? But do you definitely feel like there's some moving and shaking going on here with all week?
You get the feeling that you're missing something for sure. I had a couple friends on Twitter texting me saying, that you also saying this is crazy. And I'm just like, well, what's crazy? And I expected Omega to win beforehand, but I wasn't expecting any of the other craziness to went down. Wasn't expecting Sting or anything like that. But I definitely think that because we argued last week with NXT randomly winning the ratings by 2,000, which caught everybody off guard. If maybe this was like the turning of momentum, but that was all squashed tonight. AEW showed tonight that on Wednesday nights they were going to be the main player for a while, and I thought it was interesting. While you guys were talking a couple minutes ago, we had a tweet from Don Callis 2 minutes ago that says AEW screwed AEW. Interesting.
Very interesting. So obviously what we're getting here, at least that they're alluding to, is Don Callis is the executive vice president of Impact Wrestling. That is legit. This is his legit title. He legitimately, from Dominic, you and I have known this for a while. He legitimately is deeply involved with that company, but at the same time, was big part of getting Chris Jericho involved with New Japan Pro Wrestling, getting some big players that are involved in wrestling out of WWE, or at least not going to WWE and doing something else. And there's been talk that he was involved with AEW at some point at the initial stages, but has always been with Impact. So does this mean Impact is all elite? Are they a part of the fold? Like, there's a lot of questions that were provoked by all of this. Marcus, what's the most interesting scenario to you? To me, it seems like if Impact becomes like another territory for AEW, that's the most ideal, right? But I don't know. AEW says the doors are open. We can do stuff. You know, I mean, this is better for Impact than it is for anybody, I would say. You know, like we did our Impact post show today, and even me and I'm not to say the show was bad. It was a fine show, you know. But it felt like they're kind of treading water, you know. Like I'm waiting. They're definitely one of those brands I think really needs to have fans back. They don't have fans. They don't have their own Thunderdome. They don't have those things, but they have a lot of talent. If I'm AEW and this opens the door, this means you could get Jordan Grace, you could get Sue Young, you can get a whole bunch of different people. And I'm not saying that's happening right now. Maybe it's just selective, but if they're collaborating, this is something, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a step in the right direction, the kind of thing that could maybe even turn the tide, because, I mean, this creates a lot of interest. People like that kind of crossover stuff. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we're looking at, you know, guys like, I mean, you mentioned a few. How about, you know, Brian Myers, who I was wishing was going to sign with AEW after he was released from WWE. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, we could go on and on about it, but more importantly, I think we're getting that kind of crossover where it's like, who's going to show up week to week? Is Kenny going to be on Impact? Is you know, Brian Myers or Hornswoggle, are they going to show up?
You're going to see NXT feel a fire lit under their ass in terms of pop and shock. And John, you're nodding with me. They're going to do something.
Yeah, there's something in the works already from Triple H.
Yes, there's some cards they haven't pulled yet that they were waiting, and this is still going to be the marathon, not a race mentality. And their mind is going to be like, cool, you got Sting. All right, well, here's who we got. You know, and
you made a good
you're
point.
going to see them do something. I think
the big winner here is Impact and Access.
Yeah, I mean, what is this going to do for Access and Impact? Like I said, I think they're the real winners of this thing.
I don't even think I have Access to TV here.
Yeah, that's another thing. I heard plenty of fans respond to this, like, I want to watch what Kenny's going to do on Access, but I don't have it on my cable system.
Do they still stream on Twitch or not?
I think they do. I still believe they do. Yeah,
they do.
So this is certainly an interesting situation. A lot of people chiming in here definitely want to get a lot of fan content. We always rate 1 to 10 on the show. We haven't even mentioned that. We're 12, 13 minutes into the show. We haven't touched on this. We haven't even touched on any of the matches. It's such a big thing here. Corey Elam doesn't even give it a 10. He's at a 30.9. All right.
Broke the Meltzer scale there.
Yeah. All right. Marky Corey Elam is marking out here. All right. AJ Harris is with us. AJ says Impact could ruin AEW, but AEW could have Impact here. Sketchy situation. Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right here. It definitely seems like that. Daniel Miller, why are WWE fanboys so scared of AEW? WWE had a really, really bad week of shows, only for people who have saved WWE. Daniel, calm down, buddy. You know what's going to happen? WrestleMania is going to be in a football stadium this year. All right. So, and they're going to have one of the largest wrestling audiences in North America in the last year, and they're going to be just fine. And you're still going to complain on the internet. All right. So that's still going to happen. And we're going to have all of this wrestling, and it'll all be good. And because your wrestling is cool doesn't mean someone else's wrestling isn't cool. I like chocolate. I like chocolate, but vanilla sucks. No, everyone gets to like what they like. Buddy.
We're not afraid. We're just surprised.
Look at John Clark. Yeah, John was borderline your little pissant company. That's what he just went in that direction.
No comment.
Yeah, all right. See, John's being civil here. I appreciate it here. Let's get into the other big story of the night. Sting is in AEW. This was after a tag team match with Cody Rhodes, Darby Allin, the TNT champion, against Team Taz of Will Hobbs and Ricky Starks. Taz at ringside. This is built up to the past couple of weeks. A segment that people thought was great last week. I thought was just another like too much of this. And it's getting really crazy. And chairs are thrown into the ring. Another interference, or fourth or fifth interference thing of the night. There wasn't a clean match tonight. There wasn't a single match without some form of interference or attempted interference tonight. There was not a clean finish on AEW tonight. So that is a big issue for me.
How appropriate that a WCW legend would show up when there was not a clean finish on the entire program.
It was very
Chef's
WCW. Kiss. It was very, there's nothing, you don't know who won the match. Lights go out and the music hits. And immediately once they started playing the winter footage, I was like, they filmed all that winter footage for something. And it wasn't just winners coming.
I thought it was from Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, it looked like some. It was along with the different vignettes they've done just for the show to stylize it, right? But I was like, they filmed that for a lot more than just a one-off TV show. And what we got was Sting. Sting hates the ring. His contract with WWE has been done for a few months now. He already had the pro wrestling T-shirt on. They immediately tweeted it out. He came in with the bat. He cleared the ring. Team Taz took the powder, and he faced off with a little bit with Arn, referenced in the past. A little bit with Darby, a little bit with Cody, and even a little bit with Dustin. They immediately announced on air that he has signed a multi-year deal. We don't have any other details about it. We do have a press release that's up at WrestleZone, but we don't have any other details beyond what's on the surface here. But what we know is Sting, now in his 50s, a couple years removed from a very, very serious neck injury that he suffered in the ring with Seth Rollins in a great match. If you've not seen that match, even with a neck injury, that match is fantastic. All right, go watch that. We thought at that time that he would never wrestle again, and he retired and he entered the WWE Hall of Fame the following year in 2016. He has said, though, and made allusions to wanting to do something and always wanting the match with Taker. That's not going to happen, guys. All right, so before anyone says, I know I'm salty about that one too, but Dom, Sting's in AEW.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool moment. I'm always on the one of like somebody that's kind of like, I don't know if you should bring somebody in, like typically if they're, late 50s and, have those kind of injuries and stuff like that. But the whole presentation, Sting, how he looked and his presence, I mean, Sting, something you can always say about Sting, and especially that persona of Sting, is he only can do very little, and he still gets off such a presence, and that was there tonight. And like that big feel, and you incorporating not only like what you were saying with the links to the past from Arn Anderson to Dustin, but then
Sting in the 60s, Tom.
I don't know if he's in his 60s. Marcus, do you know his age offhand?
I want to say he is in his early 60s. I believe he's older than Arn and Hall and Nash. So yeah, I think he might be early 60s.
Then, yeah.
Who are you talking about?
Yeah, I want to make note that Darby, him facing off with Darby, and Darby kind of not relenting or like being like, showing any kind of intimidation or like being like in awe, I thought was really smart on his part, because, Darby's always said in interviews and stuff like that, he doesn't look to other people or look up to other people. He's like, he wants to be on their level. And I thought he did a very nice job with that. I don't think that's something that should be avoided either.
Rick Hutek already saying Sting will not beat Omega. He can barely conquer AARP.
He's
throwing
61,
shade,
by the way.
He's already.
He's John, you checked out for me. He said he's 61.
Yep.
61. Okay.
All right. Well, another thing is he was out there in gear. Yeah, he had gear on. So when you have somebody who's comfortable to wear gear, that's fine. But he'll dial up for big conventions and appearances and stuff like that too. He had the bat. He had the look. Definitely was dialed up there. I don't know if you're going to see Sting in a match for some reasons. I think you'll see him get physical. I think you'll see him do some things. But to say he's going to have a full-fledged one-on-one match, 60-plus, post-neck surgery, a very, very scary, serious neck injury that he suffered in the ring, with spinal stenosis is a possible risk. I'll put it out this way. If WWE didn't want to let him in a ring again, I don't know why AEW should feel comfortable doing it. That's just on the surface. I don't think that's like a gloss over judgment. Now, what is his role then if he's not physical? He definitely becomes some type of a character that can influence things. And a lot of his character from WCW back in the day lent itself to that. The guy who just walks in, does one thing, and flips the storyline on its head. And I think I don't think having him sit at the ringside and manage somebody all the time is helpful. I don't think that takes away the luster of the character. So him making these sporadic appearances and like getting under in somebody's head and like provoking them to do whatever he thinks they need to do, that's interesting. There's a lot you could do here. What do you think, Marcus? What do you do with Sting?
I can definitely see him getting physical. I think that if they do that, they're going to relegate it to tag team matches, obviously, to kind of hide the flaws and keep him out of the ring as often as possible. But I could see him getting physical. I could see him being a manager. Let me also say, though, I was pretty blown away by the entrance. He got the full-blown glacier treatment. The snow was flying.
There was some glacier treatment. How do you bring that up? I didn't even connect that.
I think that might be who they debut next. It's going to be Glacier. I'm calling it now. You heard it here first, folks.
He's tight with the Nightmare Family, so
he is.
Mm-hmm. All right, so a very eventful episode of AEW. Winter is coming. Now, here is where I start to take the thumb and turn it.
Oh boy.
Down. Okay, here's where this happens. So for anyone who doesn't like AEW, because I know we always have people that just can't get out of their head that there's some things that are good and some things that are bad. Here's some things that were bad. There was a lot of uncreative things on this show. There was a lot of redundant things. And I was like, where is the person who's governing this? Where is someone steering the ship? It was just like anyone wants to go out there and do whatever they want. All right, cool. It's AEW. You get to be creative and you get to be involved in what happens in your matches and all these different things. But who's producing these matches? Who's telling them you can't do that finish because we just did that 20 minutes before you? If I watched anything from 7:20 to 8:20, I could have seen the same match over and over and over again. There was not a clean finish on this show, including the main event, which I get it. You're doing that because you want to do the angle with Don Callis, and that's bigger. All right, and I get why you had Sting come out. But then you had Frankie Kazarian and Chris Jericho in the ring. And then you had to have the Inner Circle come in. And then they have to do their thing. And everything was overcooked. And you had referees looking like dorks who can't kick anyone out from ringside. All right, when you're supposed to be a sports-driven company. It was, you never want to have your intelligence insulted. There was plenty of times where they said, like, you guys know what we're doing. Like, let us do this thing. We have the refs. If the ref needs to stop the main event later in the night because Kenny Omega got dropped on his head on cement, it's fine. But don't tell him that he can't throw out Jake Hager at the beginning of the night. There was constant interferences. Britt Baker, her first time back in the ring, you had her hand, Reba, trying to interfere in the match directly in front of the referee. And the referee doesn't throw anyone out, and it gets involved in the finish. And she gets to get the submission. All right. And that's her big return. It looked like a goof. Didn't even look like a cool heel. She looked like a sloppy heel. And then you had this Battle Bowl match that opened the show, right? For the ring, it's gonna be Orange Cassidy and MJF. That was pretty cool. All right, I like that. I thought that was fun. But then we had to like parlay it into all this other stuff. Just let something stand. Everything felt overcooked outside of this main event. Dom, your thoughts? Way too redundant here on these run-in finishes. The referees look like dorks tonight.
You know, it's a lot of what Marcus and I do talk about this pretty common. It's a lot of what people are critical of WWE for is like a lot of these like non-finishes or, mixed up things that don't, distractions or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, something that AEW really stuck to starting off and like for consistent for a while up until recently, like very recently, has been like straight up finishes. Like somebody wins, somebody loses. And that still happens, but there's a lot of like the outside schmoz that's happening. That's not what we're used to seeing from them in a lot of ways. And there's something to be said about like it happening on a regular basis tonight. It's interesting you brought that up too, because you're right. There wasn't like a clean finish at all throughout this whole evening. So there was a little bit of a schmoz in the tag match, right? With Cody. Yeah. Well, there was. Okay.
There's chairs in the ring.
Yeah. It's you're right. You're right. So no, it's something that we don't typically want to see from AEW or wrestling in general. We want more clear-cut kind of things. And what we really hammer WWE for.
You saw like, some variation of the same match for an hour. And I'm talking about different matches. Like a classic veterans match, a women's match, a tag match. Someone on the outside who's managing him is going to get involved. And the referee's not going to throw him out, and it's going to affect the finish. And here's the finish.
Yeah. It's just give us something straight up here. And like I thought there could have been a lot for that. Like you could have done that with Kaz and Jericho. You could have done that with Leela and Britt Baker, at least the tag match too, you could have done that with. So it's like you could have really whittled it down to that straight up sports style, and then save that big, like that crazy wildness for the ending, for the main event. Yeah. And that just, it would have made it stand out more, and I think it would have been more digestible for my.
Jake Hellman joined us. Thank you for joining. The first time seeing you in the fray here, Jake, on the old virtual couch here inside the Thunder Zone. I'm live from the Thunder Zone, guys. Check this out. There's more people here than there was.
Thunder Zone.
Thunder Zone, baby. All right, wow. You're in the Thunder Zone right now.
Jake, I'm here,
and. I just woke up John Clark. John Clark is like, all right, why don't we talk about my yeah. Don't worry, we'll get you there. Jake goes, Overcooked worked tonight. It's not something they do every week. So I'm not the only person that noticed this. And there was plenty of people bringing up, like, why are you doing this with the referees? Ryan Evans saying All Elite Wrestling is doing the same shit every week that AEW is doing. Ryan Evans say that like a real salty 14-year-old boy. Ryan?
Hey now.
Ryan. The youngest person in the room, Jake goes, come on, dude. We're the youth of America. Change the world. John Clark defended the youth here. I could touch on other matches here tonight, but it felt like this was a one-match show. It really did. It felt like this was Sting, your main event, and you got something cool. And you had, at one point, Jim Ross even saying, I implore the referees to get control of the situation. Like,
yeah.
So he wasn't alone in this. Marcus, your thoughts on here before we jump over to NXT? We talk Pat Patterson here in a minute.
Yeah, and when it comes to NXT, I am going to tap out. But as of right now, as far as AEW is concerned, the thing that Dominic and I always talk about on Two Dynamite Dudes, available also on WrestleZone. I gotta get my shit in. But there's a word that I use pretty often. A phrase I use pretty often, and that's missed opportunities. And I think we saw a lot of that here tonight. I mean, one big glaring one for me is you've got this matchup that feels like it's been, kind of coming our way for multiple generations in pro wrestling, and that's Frankie Kazarian and Chris Jericho. And you're putting that match on second, and you're giving us a goofball finish. To me, that match is second to finish, and it needs to be featured. Both guys are great workers, and it just kind of buried a matchup that I was looking forward to. And again, missed an opportunity. I've always hated battle royals, and this one was no exception. I think the camera work, it's really impossible for the camera to focus on the stuff it's supposed to focus on. Like Sean Spears and Scorpio Sky were having this big moment, and the camera didn't show it until right at the end when Sky wound up punching him. But they had this great like slow turnaround moment on the other side of the ring, and we all missed it. So it's just it's the minor details like that. It's they always say it's not the big old stab that gets you. It's the 1,000 paper cuts that wind up getting you.
Someone checks in here who I know has an intimate knowledge of wrestling being televised and big time wrestling events. Jay Feliciano saying the camera work was really sloppy tonight in AEW, exposed a lot of their production issues, and you just brought that up there, Marcus. I was surprised. I was really, really surprised by that. That was something else. I was like, I did feel like this was a bigger show, and there was pressure on them to deliver some big moments, and they overcooked the undercard, but the main course was what you came to get. You got it.
You got it. I think you got it.
And the battle royal was fun. It wasn't great. They've had better battle royals. They got a little with some stuff, but it was fine.
The stuff that was really great about the program was the kind of thing that's impossible to screw up, right? Like, how are you going to screw up Sting's entrance unless he falls through the wall like Shockmaster?
God, that would have been awful. John's like, I don't want that to happen to the poor guy. I don't want the poor guy.
Putting that image in my brain is not good.
Ooh, man. Or if he wipes out on the ramp, breaks a hip.
I don't have Sting fall down on TV. I don't want TV.
Well, thank goodness it didn't happen. But I mean, that kind of thing's a layup. So I think that they're going to bring in new viewers as a result of this. Let's just hope that they can keep those viewers after they watch next week if the production issues continue.
I mean, you're definitely going for that 50 and above demo if you got Sting on TV, right? So
that's right. All the ladies from the 80s who are in love with him, they're breaking out. They're breaking
firming him up again with the Dolly Parton.
Yeah, they're tuning in.
Yep.
There's a lot of little stingers running around there that he doesn't know about. You know,
they're not little anymore. They're all grown men now.
Look at this at all. Marcus, you got to put a baby to bed, or maybe the baby's already putting you to bed.
Yeah, I think I better tap out, fellas. Nice talking with you.
All right.
And check us out. 2 Dynamite
Check
dudes.
us out. Hey, this week we are starting the AEW draft. We're gonna draft our own rosters of AEW. So big fight feel coming up on 2 Dynamite dudes, and Marcus and I will be going back and forth detailing each match. I know we're gonna have some differences. I'm already feeling it with Marcus right now, so it's gonna be a slugfest.
I am already getting angry. It's gonna be something else.
Marcus, do you want to share your bundle of joy though before you leave and show them your Macho Man figure?
Oh well, yes, by all means, it's right there on the wall. I thought you were gonna reference my daughter. I was like, that's not my bundle of joy, Dominic. That Macho Man.
I have a newborn child. No, I got this fresh, elite Macho. John's like, I totally get it.
Have a good night, guys.
All right, you too. Take care, Dom. All right, Dom, I want to keep you here for a little bit as we transfer over to the action here with WWE.
Yeah.
They have War Games this Sunday. I like we were mentioning earlier. I do get the impression, John, that NXT felt like they're doing Kenny and Moxley next month. Maybe they knew that Sting was showing up. Maybe they knew about that and felt like, hey, we're going to do our real hard sell. We're not going to try and go up against it. They did some fun things tonight. I saw some stuff they did. I was surprised how much time they gave to people that clearly are not going to be a part of this takeover card on Sunday. So they did feel like, all right, let's do some long-term stuff. Let's develop some new tag teams. They did do that. Ever Rise, grizzled young veterans were featured on the show. I was like, all right, let's get Imperium back on the show. So I was like, all right, you're doing some stuff. You're saying like, all right, we know what the other show is going to do, but we're in this for the long haul. That's some marathon race stuff, is shoring up your talent. But we did have some sad news here today in wrestling, and I do think this was the big WWE story of the day. We have the unfortunate passing of Pat Patterson. I think in wrestling, you can talk about those moments where it stops and people start talking about how special someone is. In wrestling, the wave of response to this guy was overwhelming, just overwhelming. And you talk about someone who has such a tremendous influence. I'm talking like Spielberg has on movies, Pat Patterson has on wrestling, in terms of coming up with the Royal Rumble. His in-ring career was already a Hall of Famer. He didn't have to be a part of wrestling when he was done wrestling, but he was a part of WrestleMania 1 on. He was Vince McMahon's right-hand guy, got them to go international, if not national, and booked all those things. He was a heavy part of Macho Madness and Hulkamania and the launch of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was a critical character on TV with the Stooges and stuff like that. Did some of the funniest things that WWE's ever had. Just a tremendous character. And I think maybe for us following wrestling, we know that. I think for some casual fans, they may not know that, right, Dom?
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, there's so much that Pat Patterson has done for the wrestling business, like, and established almost like really what WWE can hang their hat on, and a lot of like what's been established for mainstream wrestling is because of Pat Patterson and his influence and his having Vince McMahon's ear, like being his, hand almost to like, what comes into play and what gets executed. Like Pat's, and you didn't even mention, like, he's, not only was he the first Intercontinental champ, but he was like tag team with Ray Stevens and the influence he's had there. It's just like such a historical figure in pro wrestling.
6 decades.
Yeah.
And he wasn't actively off the road for many years now, but he unfortunately lost his fight with cancer. He was still a consultant with WWE into the last year here. I mean, he wasn't on the road, but I mean, he was still on those conference calls and getting the notebook out and coming up with finishes and different things like that. And, John, you're on the younger side, but you saw the way he even influenced the newer generation of wrestlers. He was a deep part of NXT and their development and getting to where they are now. Where do you see his fingerprints on the business right now?
I think that he left a really big impact on the way that they are. I mean, and especially the Intercontinental Champion. We never have an Intercontinental Champion match or anything without them always referencing Pat Patterson and something along the lines of that. And when you start a show with the entire roster looking sad on the stage with Triple H, William Regal, everybody front and center, this person was a big deal and left a huge impact. I think the last time that we got this, I'm not sure if we got this with Howard Finkel. I think we did, but it's been a while since we've had an entire roster line the stage to start a show to show their condolences for somebody. And I thought the video package they played for him was very, very good and did honestly that was, I think, tailored to the casual fans to give them a brief 2 or 3 minute insight on how important he was and what he did. So I really enjoyed them showing that video package, and I fully expect them to do the same thing on Friday for SmackDown.
I agree. The perfect song was Frank Sinatra's
his favorite. Yeah,
his favorite song. He sang that on Legends House when they closed out the reality show.
They showed that tonight too, by the way.
And that was a segment where he, for the first time publicly, it was been known,
it
had been known that he was openly gay. He was openly gay to his friends in the business and people that knew him, and he had wrestlers over his house with his partner who had passed away. His partner passed away the same weekend as Montreal Screwjob. So I mean, like, he's been a part of the. He's in the WWE family. When people talk about the company as a family and that, like, lifers, he was always going to be a part of that. I expect a tribute on television. On SmackDown, I expect something on Raw, and I expect something at the Royal Rumble. I expect something at the Royal Rumble. I expect
really should.
At the Royal Rumble. Should. That is his match that is made there. We have full coverage of this up now at WrestleZone.com. And if you're just like, oh, I want to see what people are saying, I want to read all the tweets, we're the aggregator. We have one great article we're updating it that just has everybody talking about their great stories. My favorite is his reoccurring joke. I love good old dad jokes. And he had a really, really good one here. And I can use it. I can plug in anyone else. John, do you want the joke on you, or do you want it on Dom, or should I do it on you? Who wants to get it? Who wants to sell?
Okay, like, give it to me. I'll do it. Yeah.
John's like, I've taken enough shit tonight. give it to him. All right. So, hey, Dom, you know who was talking about you the other day?
Hey, who, Kev?
Nobody. It was his favorite thing to do with all these insecure wrestlers, where obviously Pat Patterson is Vince McMahon's right-hand guy. So he would go over to people and be like, you know who was talking about you yesterday? And they're gonna, was it Vince? And he would be like, nobody was talking about you. And it was just like the perfect way to just take the piss out of somebody. I've heard several great stories on Busted Open today on SiriusXM. Tommy Dreamer told a great story.
Ian Riccoboni had a good story about Pat too.
And he said that him and Shane Helms had just finished a match, and he was with Tommy Dreamer, and he was getting his gear off, and Shane said, "Oh, did you just wrestle?" He goes, "Yeah, he just wrestled." So, what'd you think about Pat Patterson? I want to know what you think. He was like, "Well, it was your most recent match." Then he just walked away. It was just like, oh my god, the wit of a guy like that. His ability to take the piss out of people, but at the same time, earn the trust of so many people in a business where getting widespread trust is very, very hard to come by, and so definitely he will be missed. And
Kev, I don't think we should go without saying too, we were at StarCast 1 and we saw the Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah, we were at this. That was so I feel so bad. It was the roast of Bruce Pritchard.
Bruce Pritchard, and it was Brisk Jerry and him together. And it was such a neat moment to see them like interact with one another. And then Pat just like he was a butt of the jokes, but he was taking it like no tomorrow. And it was a really, really rewarding experience. One of my favorite moments of StarCast in general, like that I've been to. So
Don, the whole time he's on stage and he's playing with a cigarette, he's like, the whole time he's there, I just want to get out of here and smoke a cigarette. Look at here smoking a cigarette. And he was taking the roast jokes and all those different things. But let's jump into WWE NXT War Games is this Sunday. As we mentioned last week, Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly, the advantage is set for War Games. We have 2 cages in the Capitol Wrestling Center. John, lay it out for me. How did they officially go home for this pay-per-view Sunday on the network, tonight on USA Network?
Pat McAfee out to the ring, his usual gold promo, harassing the fans. He did take a minute to be a little serious and acknowledge Pat Patterson, but as soon as that was over, he was calling, the WWE or NXT fans the dumbest fans that he's ever known, including like the Colts and everything. Like he's like, NXT fans are by far the worst out of anybody.
That's great.
And then he did a good job of portraying the heel that you're going to want to see punched in the face this weekend. So very much looking forward to that match, and I think it's going to be a very good match. Obviously, probably the main event of the show. I look for that to impress fans, and I think that we will see Pat McAfee impress again in a second outing. What do you think, Kevin?
I do. I think Pat McAfee is getting to this rarefied era of people that come into wrestling and you're like, oh, this is a Kurt Angle vibe. I'm not saying he's a better wrestler than Kurt Angle, but Kurt Angle, when I was a kid, I knew enough about wrestling to know that, oh, this guy's new to wrestling and this guy is like great and he's been doing it a long time. I was like maybe 10 or 12 or whatever, and I could see that. And Kurt Angle was the first guy where I'd never seen him before, and the first time I saw him, I was like, he can be a world champion. Like immediately he could be a world champion. McAfee isn't, I would say, the most coordinated athlete, but after that match with Adam Cole, which I think is one of the most impressive performances we've seen this year, a match that no one expected it to be what it was, and the talk was in the industry, we heard it from our friends over at Fightful, they got word that people were saying, he's going to have a better debut than Ronda Rousey. I was like, what? Really? And he did. And he could be argued that he did.
I don't know. Ronda Rousey's debut was really
in front of a crowd. I'm saying if Pat McAfee did that in front of an arena that was just expecting some
or a stadium for that matter,
or stadium for that matter. If Pat McAfee did that in front of a stadium, would have been through the roof, you know. So I think you have to like judge by the parameters. He did that during the pandemic era. This is a guy where if you had him in front of arenas, you have him in front of stadiums. I'll say this now. I'm wearing a WrestleMania t-shirt. He's gonna work a WrestleMania.
You will at some point. Too.
Oh,
yeah, you will.
Yeah. He should.
They're going to bring him up to Raw or SmackDown. Maybe he's the guy who brings some faction or some group over there. He is a heat getter. He is a natural guy that you are entertained by him, but at the same time, you're like, I just want to watch somebody come over and smack you in the mouth. I just want to watch. Like, you can just say it. You can just say it to yourself, and you mean it. And also, the people they put around him are great. You know, like whatever weaknesses he may have in this match, which has a lot of moving parts and a lot of dangerous things. You have Pete Dunne, legitimate, scary guy. You have one of the best tag teams in wrestling in Lorcan and Birch. This is a special group to go up against a very special group in Undisputed Era, which we kind of felt was just like, all right, they're wrapping this up. Cole's going to maybe win the title and he'll go, or he won't, and he'll go to Raw. Like, that's kind of the perspective of it. This breathes a whole new level of life into that team.
This essentially allows Pat McAfee to be full-time without being full-time, leading a faction like this.
Yeah. And that's smart in a pandemic when you're not going on the road. You know, you're just doing the show in one place at one time. Logistically, that makes sense. Like there's deals you can sign with guys. Like the AEW's doing that now, where they have like the tiered thing now. I think Pat is a guy who has a following online. Millions of people watch him. There's a lot of people who have asked me about NXT because of him that don't watch NXT. Now, are they watching it on Wednesdays? I don't know, but I'll be talking to them on like a Friday or Saturday. They're like, I'm catching up on NXT, and this is really cool. I want Pat to come in there and piss off you wrestling nerds. And they're all like football fans.
Well, and he plugs it on his podcast. It gets millions of views each week, too.
Yeah,
so.
Tons. And yeah, like a huge national audience. What do you think of this match? How do you think it's going to go, John?
John?
Oh,
John, you there?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know if you
said
okay.
Okay. It's the three-way thing. What do you think here? War Games, Pat Squad, the kings of NXT against Undisputed Era.
So
they drove the nail down with these promos tonight, but what do you think is going to happen in Sunday?
It's so tough to predict because the Undisputed Era are kind of known as like the kings of War Games, even though, you know, we have the kings of NXT stable of Pat McAfee, and obviously they have the advantage in the match. And I honestly really want to see Pat McAfee and his group come out on top. But for some reason, I don't see it happening. I see Adam Cole and Undisputed Era coming out on top. And I know we've been saying this kind of repetitively lately, but you have to think that the final bell is tolling for Undisputed Era soon in NXT. But the moment of it being the right time is in question right now. If they win this, you have to wonder, well, are they going to go back after the NXT Championship? The tag scene in just the last 2 weeks has dramatically improved in NXT. They don't really need Undisputed Era for the tag scene anymore. So I think that Pat and Pete could use the win more, but I don't necessarily think they're going to win.
Okay. What do you think, Dom?
You know, somebody who isn't a regular watcher of NXT, but knowing, you know, where the trajectory that Undisputed Era has taken, and then you mix it in with like Pat McAfee laying the groundwork for being a presence in wrestling, a unique presence in that matter. and then having somebody like a Pete Dunne return and everything, it makes it kind of tough. Yeah, I'm with John in the regard that I would like to see Pat and Pete Dunne and, you know, Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch get the W. And, you know, if I had to really choose, I would say that Undisputed is going to get the win, because it just kind of makes sense from that standpoint. They're gone. They've been hurt. They could use a win because we're kind of used to them kind of, you know, okay, what's next for them? What's next for them? And we're still going to be waiting on that. But I think them getting a win at this moment in time would be the most beneficial to them. And you can certainly work around, you know, Pete Dunne getting a loss and Pat McAfee getting a loss. I think there's more to tell. So I'm going with Undisputed Era.
I'm going with Undisputed Era as well. But at the same time, it wouldn't shock me, but at the same time, I like the idea that it's not for certain. I think especially with a match like this, it's big in a pay-per-view. Like, I like the idea of it's not for sure. At this stage of me watching wrestling and following it my whole life, I'm okay with not knowing completely what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially when we watch it all the time. So I'm on board with that. How do they develop the women's War Games match this week on NXT, John?
Yeah, so this was featured in 2 different segments. One about halfway through when Rhea Ripley and Ember Moon revealed some kind of what I'm assuming is a tank for Shotzi Blackheart. They didn't actually show it. They just like
it is War Games.
They unveiled a curtain, and Shotzi was like, "Oh my god, this is great!" And then they, you know, panned away. Later in the night, we get this main event, the advantage match between Shotzi Blackheart and Raquel Gonzalez. This was a similar ending to the show that AEW tonight, because it was screwy. It had interference. We had where Raquel Gonzalez's team is on a pedestal in the back, like watching, and then here comes Indy Hartwell with a ladder to help them get down and interfere in the match. So they start all teaming up on Shotzi, and here comes Ember and Rhea Ripley. And keep in mind, to this point, it was still 4-on-3. We didn't have that fourth teammate yet for Shotzi Blackheart. Well, Io Shirai comes running out as expected because she's a champion, doesn't have anything going on. Basically, she takes everybody out, wipes everybody clean, allows Shotzi to get back into the ring eventually, grab the briefcase. So Shotzi's team will have the advantage. They use this. The very end of the show was to officially announce Io as the 4th member. So we're going to have a 4-on-4 War Games match, including our NXT Women's Champion in the match itself with the advantage. I look for this to be a very good match. Probably this is only going to be the 2nd Women's War Game match. I think this is probably going to top last year's. Very opportunity for Shotzi Blackheart to look strong. Ember Moon returning from injury to look good. And then we have Rhea Ripley and the champion Io. So I hope they use this to kind of build maybe something for Io in the future after the match. Because there's not really anything at stake in these War Games matches. They're kind of just like grudge matches.
But you want to see them have a motivation to get in the ring, you know, and you also have to do that with a lot of different people. So they all have to have some type of investment to get in the ring, and then you can go off with everyone's individual programs.
Yeah, and we talked about how they pretty much brought 4 or 5 individual programs into this War Games match to kind of settle everything in one big match.
Whereas with the men, it was a faction thing. It was like, here's this team, here's that team. Whereas with the women, it was just here. This person hates this person and this person, and oh wait, here, good guys, good girls versus bad girls. And they kind of just separated the teams. It was almost like Super Friends versus Legion of Doom, if you will. So I'm on board with it. There's never been an NXT War Games match where I didn't feel like it was something I didn't want to see. This is appointment viewing. I went to War Games last year. It was one of the best shows I ever went to. And they have it's a bar, especially for takeover shows. The War Games ones, it's like, how crazy do they want to get with this? And then with Pat McAfee now, you have that elevated sense of how crazy is this guy who isn't really a wrestler going to do, because he's going to do something nuts. And then you have the women say, like, well, we're the women and we're not going to just sit there and take nothing, especially in NXT. So I look for these to be appointment viewing on Sunday. What else do we have going on in NXT? I know we saw a little bit of a shakeup here with the tag teams. You mentioned the tag teams have a fresh take here, especially on what we are calling a lame duck NXT. I wouldn't say that. It was still quack.
They have definitely, like I said earlier, taken dramatic improvements over the past couple of weeks with the grizzled young veterans making their return. Tonight, we had Imperium cutting a very good promo, making their presence known in the tag division again. Everrise is actually starting to look a little stronger as well. And then, of course, you have the champions, and you also have Undisputed Era. And then you can't forget about Breezango. And mysteriously, Killian Dane and Drake Maverick have kind of disappeared from the radar the past couple of weeks.
And they were like a hot team for a while. They were having like fun promos, and they had their own little like goofy, like not characteristic of what they are theme song. NXT can put some tag teams together here in a little bit, but I'm surprised that team didn't do anything, right, Tom?
It's interesting, like, because you look, and like WWE's always been kind of like really wishy-washy with tag teams. They don't stay consistent. At least the main roster does, but NXT had a reputation of really establishing tag teams that you're like, bam.
And I think when they got to TV, it got a little bit more challenging because, like, when you're doing the network shows, you're not bound by commercial breaks or anything like that. So they just felt like, oh, tag teams take too long. So let's just do these chunky, small matches we know how to do with individual players and stuff like that. We'll do the tag teams now and then. I do think tag teams for NXT was something that they dropped the ball a little bit with.
No, I really feel that.
When they got to USA Network, I think there was different time constraints and different things with that.
No, you know what? Because like whenever I would think of NXT Tag Team Champions, I would think like that's a big deal.
Yeah,
and it's a big deal to have those belts. I feel because it's almost like the Intercontinental title back in the 80s for like tag teams. It felt like because you had FTR, you had so many other of these tag teams that you were intrigued to see. American Alpha, every guys like that, where it's just like, man, these guys are the workers, and they're over everything like that. And now it's just kind of get lost in the shuffle, where it's like who you want to see these tag teams get reestablished. And it's kind of a shame. Like hopefully that they find their tracking with it, because Killian Dane and Drake Maverick sound like an interesting pairing. Imperium, I don't know too much about them, but from what I've seen, like for NXT UK and everything, they seem like a solid tag team. So it's just like, got to get these personas established, and you really got to commit. And I think that's the most important part, is committing to something and getting them over on a consistent basis, instead of here and there. Oh, what's happening with the tag team division? Well, nothing really. So.
Mm-hmm. We did have some developments here with the North American title. The unexpected Leon Ruff is champion. He's just so happy to be there. But at the same time, he's like, I'm not going to take any of your guff guys. You guys want to have me in this match? I'm going to be in this match. He's in the mix with the much taller Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano, who is at commentary. Of course, Ruff and Priest together against Escobar. And I'm forgetting his Raul. Who am I forgetting here, John Clark? Who is he?
Raul Mendoza.
Raul Mendoza. I don't want to mess that up. I know his first name. So this team is there. Gargano is at ringside doing commentary, and he has the two Ghostface guys with him behind the barrier. What's going on here? Spooky people are henchmen.
It's that old school Halloween mask you could buy at the Dollar Tree that every kid wore in elementary school.
Yeah,
that you could
to go egging. That's the one you wore when you were going to go throw toilet paper at people.
I think it's interesting how they're developing this into actually meaning something. Before it was just kind of somebody that was there. Now they're actually acknowledging like who could it actually be. I still think that one of those is Austin Theory, and I stand by that. The other one is anybody's guess. However, I think we will find out Sunday. I do think this is the most unpredictable match on the card. Any of these three people could win, and it makes sense. Leon Ruff has went from jobber to unsuspecting champion to possibly the real deal if he has a good performance on Sunday. That's how you build somebody up. Triple H is doing a very good job with Leon Ruff, who went from being a nobody to cutting a 6-minute promo by himself on the show to right after Pat Patterson tribute, for that matter. Here comes Leon Ruff to cut a promo,
which is a really hard position to be in.
Yeah,
I mean, even if you were just having a match, it'd be just a hard thing, and they have to open with it. They have to acknowledge it. And now let's go to wrestling. Like, it's kind of a hard position to be in, especially for a guy who's been wrestling less than 5 years.
You got that, and then you got Johnny Gargano. He's the antagonist, playing the role perfectly right now. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to do it. He could win the champion back, and then Damian Priest, who was a champion for, I think it was 2 months before he lost it, we both agreed he was going to have the championship for longer than that. It looked like he was due for a pretty lengthy run. Out of the three of them, I think Priest is probably the most likely to win, but I can see him continuing with this Leon Ruff thing for a while, too.
I can see him continuing with the Leon Ruff thing for a while. It feels like it has momentum. I wouldn't take the belt off of him. It feels like an interesting.
I just don't want to see one of those little schoolboy roll-up pins after a 10-minute match to end the show, or to end the match.
All right. So overall, thumbs up on NXT, a show. If you just want more wrestling and you watched AEW Dynamite live, you got to catch this show too. Especially if is it something like you got to see this before War Games or catch up on the clips? How do you feel about it? Is it a must watch?
I think it was, not necessarily a must-watch because they really already finished the build to most of the stuff last week. We did get the official announcement of Timothy Thatcher and Tommaso Ciampa tonight on the show, so that will be an official match this Sunday. So if you want to kind of get more information and a build-up to how that happened, you might want to watch NXT. Otherwise, if you watched last week's show and the weeks before that, I think you can confidently go into this Sunday expecting a very good show and not being left in the dark about what's going on. This is a very, very unpredictable card where every single match could literally go any way and it would be okay. So very exciting to watch that. And with there being no main card pay-per-view, you get to enjoy NXT on a Sunday night again instead of a Saturday night.
We'll also get Dexter Lumis versus Cameron Grimes, another stipulation match. They fought in a haunted house, Dom. They fought in a haunted house.
I think I heard about that one.
They fought in a haunted. That was I enjoyed it. I know some people didn't like it. They had a blindfold match. Didn't enjoy that one nearly as much.
Yeah, I heard that.
Now
that's
they're going to do another old school NWA gimmick. They're doing a strap match this Sunday. Cameron Grimes is a very entertaining heel. He is just like a chicken shiz, talk the game. The kind of polar opposite. He's the really, really spicy chip to an ice cold Dexter Lumis. Some people don't like this. I love it. It is beautifully cartoony. It is something that NXT needed, where it's just two really profound characters. But I could see you, Dom, not liking this at all. I could see you just being like, "This is too goofy. I'm not on board."
It's typically that stuff's not my cup of tea. I will say I like Cameron Grimes, like since his run as Trevor Lee and all that stuff. I really think he's smart to the business. I very much like the look of Dexter Lumis. It sounds like, from what as an outsider's perspective, it sounds like they're not utilizing him to his full potential in certain ways with the gimmicks, kind of muddying the waters with him. But ultimately, like, I like both guys. Execution is very important, though, in all that stuff. And I really like, if you're doing comedy, you don't want to do it too much to the fact where it becomes damaging to the wrestler themselves, where they can't shake that off. And hopefully, I mean, again, I'm not aware of any of this, so like, I'm hoping that they can establish like Cameron Grimes as a considerable threat eventually at some point. Maybe they're already doing that.
Hey,
he's heel R-Truth.
Yeah, he's heel R-Truth.
So, and they got to be very careful then.
But the thing is, there's something to be said for the longevity you get as a comedic player mid-card in WWE.
He's only going to be able to keep losing so much.
Yeah.
That puts a ceiling on somebody too, where like
it does put a ceiling on it, but then you're in the mix and you're on TV.
You're in the mix, but
time.
There's your end game for that star. You as somebody, you want to be top level. Like, ultimately, you want to be. And if they're putting a cap on you for comedy, then that's where you're going to be stuck at. And like somebody for like Cameron Grimes, I don't want to see that for.
You say that, and we look at Eric Young. You know what I mean? And look at how that guy flipped the script. So it's possible, but I agree with you, Don. Overall, John Clark, is there any loose pieces, other things we got to touch on with NXT before we put the rating on this whole show?
No, the only other thing I would mention is it's going to be interesting to see this Sunday if we do get anything with Finn Balor. He's been off the radar again the past couple of weeks. We've seen him once since he defended the title against Kyle O'Reilly, and that was for him to say he was back, and that was 3 weeks ago, and he hasn't been back since.
And he suffered. So, he has metal in his jaw. He had his jaw broken in that match with Kyle O'Reilly.
Ultimately, I think we get him and Karrion Kross back at the same time. Whenever that happens, they will both be back together, and they will have a match. So maybe this Sunday, maybe next week. Who knows?
I do think NXT's done a very good job
Of hiding it?
Yeah, with the situation they had where they had Karrion Kross get the title and then have to immediately drop it. And then they went into a fun scenario with that Iron Man match on TV to get the belt on Finn Balor, and then he gets hurt and they have to drop it. And it's bad luck. Those things happen. But in terms of just not having your champion and then you have these other angles, it was good timing for War Games. It was just like, if there was bad injuries, at least the timing worked where you could do all these faction warfare things to make it work. I'm on board. I think War Games is another show, and it's just the pattern, Dom. We've touched on this when I've had you on the show. It's like the TV. I don't like Raw and SmackDown, or I like SmackDown. I don't like Raw, but there's some things in SmackDown piss me off. And whatever, the pay-per-view I'll watch, and then the pay-per-view happens, and then everyone enjoys the pay-per-view. For me, I don't feel that with NXT. I always feel like there's escalation. You get the show, and maybe it's great, or maybe it's very good. What do you think here? Are you sold on NXT War Games this Sunday?
There's something about NXT is like they really do deliver on their takeovers, and
yes,
like a little bit something. Obviously, the absence of crowd gets has a little bit of it taken away, but that's just the time and circumstance of it. But I think out of all,
I love Capital Wrestling Center. I think it's really cool. I think it's gritty. It doesn't feel like Thunderdome.
That adds to it. That certainly adds to it. Like it's very important to have that. And as the Thunderdome conveyed, a lot of the change for that, and making it feel bigger and important. So, but yeah, no, I think Takeover. I'm already intrigued by Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher, two guys I absolutely love. So I think that's really cool. And War Games, Pat McAfee, there's that interest of what's going to happen with him and what crazy things can we expect. And
he's taking some big giant bumps.
He's going to take, you hate to have that hanging over somebody's head,
but it's cool
for those kind of expectations. But what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's the Royal Rumble anticipation.
I'm jealous, Kevin, because you got to go see War Games in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I think we're due for either Philly or Pittsburgh to get a War Games, because I'd like to go see one myself too.
Hey, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Wow.
I'll have to come to Smelladelphia and
Dirty Delphia.
Hey, Dirty Delphia.
Let me ask you guys this. Triple H is having a conference call tomorrow, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
I believe we have one. We're definitely having one before.
If you could ask him one question about TakeOver or NXT in general, what would you guys ask him?
I would ask him what surprises are we going to get? Because I think people are expecting some surprises.
I'm not going to tell you that.
I know, but I'm saying are we going to get a surprise? Is there something that's coming that people shouldn't expect? Because I think with TakeOver, they've had a good track record of throwing you some curveballs on those shows when there's a heightened expectation and they deliver on it. I think this is the time of year to do that. Going into WrestleMania season, NXT is a part of that. I think some curveballs are going to be thrown this Sunday in some ways or another. And one of them could be somebody coming over from SmackDown or Raw. It could be somebody returning like a Karrion Kross, which I think would be big. Or it could be a new signee. Now, before we sign off here, I do want to quickly touch on this, and Robert and I will get more into this. A new class of WWE recruits were announced today. Some very, very big names on that list, most notably Wentz and another member of the Rascals. I don't have the list in front of me. Doing
Wentz and Desmond Xavier.
Thank you, Desmond Xavier. Now, a lot of people asking, where is Trey Miguel? A very popular guy in that trio. Maybe some people say he's the standout. I think he shows up. I think he could be a really big surprise on this show in some way. And you have him in the Capital Wrestling Center, just like you would back in the day when you're doing these shows in front of crowds. I could see Karrion Kross on that show. So that's what I would think. I think they're going to throw a curveball and have someone show up that you're not expecting.
So I wonder. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if on War Games this Sunday, if they do announce something sort of big for NXT to try to counteract some of what AEW's got going on,
That's
like you can't play.
You think they're going to be reactionary, or is it going to be like an organic thing where this is all that they plan?
We're going to plan it ahead of time, I think. This time.
Yeah. There's some things they've done that are reactionary, like doing Great American Bash and doing Halloween Havoc, and a lot of people say, "Oh, they're doing it to piss off Cody," and blah, 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 blah. I think really they're doing it to piss off TNT.
And they don't necessarily have to say what. I mean, they could always be like, this Wednesday we're going to have a surprise return or something, and that there's enough to get people to tune in.
especially with a hardcore wrestling audience. It's like under 1 million, 1.5. That's what you're going for. Also, I think it's worth noting that I do think AEW is going to win the ratings this week.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
But those numbers were shocking last week. It was very surprising.
Wednesday night, people Thanksgiving going home, making the travels. I think that really comes into play. They're going to a new house, and hey, I want to watch Dynamite, but I'm at my aunt's, uncles, whoever.
I'm on the road. I'm traveling. But it was interesting to me that AEW had a gain in like NXT had a gain and AEW had a loss. Like that was the thing where I was like, this can still be interesting. This is still a game of 200,000 viewers
until tonight.
Let me say though, tonight it really did. Like Tony Khan's tweet that got heavily criticized, the shift in power.
I didn't see it. Oh, the one from
from weeks ago. You really got that feel tonight. I feel like on several levels with Sting.
I mean, but Dom, are you gonna write NXT out on this thing?
You mean for this week? Or
I'm saying in general.
They got a lot of work to do. Let me just say that because
there's always a plan B.
There's always a plan B.
Let's find out because a lot of the times it's been reactionary with main roster stuff with WWE. So I want to see what NXT can deliver on.
That's a little bit more challenging because they're also reactionary to everything. Like they're reactionary to. They have to be reactionary.
They
to sports. They have to be reactionary to
his last second decision for ripping up the script.
With NXT, I think sure, fine.
Yeah.
But it looked like people were ripping off scripts on AEW tonight because they didn't know how to tell the referees to counter eject anyone from ringside.
The referees, I think the referees the big thing. Like the referee.
Oh God! If they do that again next week, John, you get AEW. You're gonna have to carry.
That's something they gotta tighten up.
NXT, I got it. NXT's big counteract. You know who they're gonna bring on?
Tommy Young,
Chicago's finest.
CM Punk.
Yep.
I do think in general, and whenever we talk about surprises around this time of year, who's showing up at Royal Rumble, I think WWE is going to do some big stuff in the next 2 or 3 months. I think there's some things that they want to do that tell people like, watch our show, come and see our show. When you can get tickets, we're going to have a banger show.
If there's going to be fans, they are going to make Royal Rumble a spectacular event.
Yes. If they can get fans at Royal Rumble, they're going to try and make that.
Honestly, I'm not
something really huge.
I'm not ruling out The Rock. I mean, you really can't.
No. With the Roman stuff, it's all written there.
You really can't.
If CM Punk was to return to wrestling, this would be the time to
that
bring him
would
back.
Be
if you brought him back in the spring, if he came back in the spring, or if he goes to AEW, that'd be a great time to go.
No,
AEW,
stop.
John doesn't want that. Don't do that.
They don't have to start watching it.
All right, so Dom, you and I covered AEW. Well, we certainly had an eventful show. The 1 to 10, what do you give it? I'm giving this show. I don't want to give it an 8 because I was so aggravated with the first hour of the show and all the different inconsistencies. But you had Sting. You had this banger in the Moxley match. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm giving 8.1. I do the points, so the decimals. So.
You had to give it a little bit more.
I'm doing the Price is Right thing where I outbid you.
All right.
Yeah.
Spin the wheel. All right, here we go. Over at NXT, you had it, John Clark. The 1 to 10. What do you give it?
I'm going to give the show tonight a 7 out of 10.
All right, 7 out of 10. Not a 7.5, dog?
Nope. Not.
They're that 0.5, dog. All right, so thank you guys so much for checking out the show. Let us know if you're watching on demand or listening on the podcast. Hit us up on Twitter at WrestleZone.com, on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. I don't think we have a MySpace page. I don't think we need one. So hit us up on all the social medias. Let us know what you thought of these shows, especially if you're listening on demand. Thank you to all the people that are listening, by the way, in Australia. All right, we are climbing up in Australia. Singapore, we hear you, we see you, we feel you. Cyprus, you better believe we getting on the chart in the island nation of Cyprus. Let's add another list where we have scored a top 100 spot in the Apple Sports chart. Denmark, that's right. Denmark, baby.
Get working on Luxembourg. What do you get working on Luxembourg?
We're working on Luxembourg, Vatican City, small little countries. Little knockoff countries.
I want to get the Pope Francis going on in this. I'm tuning in.
Oh, come on, as a Catholic boy, if I get the Pope to watch my wrestling. By the way, speaking of the Pope from did an interview with us. Just did an interview with us. It is available now. Look at John just wiping it off. Like,
that was pre-planned plugging.
Wow, that was not. I can't believe that.
We went 70 minutes talking about some great wrestling. If you had a great time listening to this, all you have to do is simply help us out. Share this with a wrestling friend. If you have a friend who listens to podcasts, send this link over to them. If they watch stuff on YouTube, send this over to them. If they're on Facebook all day long, put us on in the background, and we're a great show for you. That's what we're going for. Thank you so much, especially during this really challenging time. People spend a lot more time in front of screens. We just hope we're a fun thing to help you get through your day, whether you're working at home or you're just trying to avoid the news and things are tough. We're out there. We're all feeling it in our own lives as well. This is our fun getaway from that stuff as well. I have roommates that pound on the door and say, stop talking about wrestling so goddamn much. I was yelling during the main event in my room. I was like, what the fuck's going on in there? I was like, Sting is back. Sting.
It's the man they call Sting.
It's a man. It's a man, and they call him Sting. So if you're watching this stuff, we hope we're a fun extension of that you get to enjoy this stuff with us, and we try to give it to you guys as well. Do want to mention this 101 WKQX, the alternative rock radio station I work for, presenting a big streaming concert, $17.50 for 3 of the biggest bands in alternative music: Glass Animals, Wallows, and Cold War Kids, plus special guests you won't see coming. We do have some surprises. All right, so that's coming up December 23rd on Festivus. It's the night we stole Christmas. You can get your tickets at 101WKQX.com. You can watch it on all your different devices all around the world, anywhere in the world. 8 p.m. December 23rd, Central Standard Time. Dominic, tell them what's going on, baby.
All right. So, 2 Dynamite Dudes every Friday, like we said. AEW draft starting this week. I'm so pumped for that. But tomorrow is going to be the debut of Meet the Wrestler, my Meet the Wrestler podcast, where I interview Barrett Brown. So I kind of set it up almost like a job interview in a way, getting some further details about a wrestler that's should be on people's radar, but isn't, because they're independent wrestler and they're making their way. So it's kind of like it's a nod to MSNBC's Meet the Press with the late Tim Russert and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to having that debut tomorrow. Tune into Calvin Tankman I just interviewed, who made his MLW debut last week. So awesome conversation I had with him. Just tune into WrestleZone.com for all the good stuff. The Pope, we got plenty on the line. Robert D. Felice, he's always hanging out there. That mercenary, you can't beat that.
Look at John being loyal, staying with the zone. Look at you. I appreciate you, John. You're good.
Right?
I don't have to share custody with you. I don't have to drop you off at your stepdad's house like I do Robert all the time. John, when do they have you on the news desk on WrestleZone?
You can catch me on there Sunday throughout the day and in the morning, and then obviously regularly on the WrestleZone post shows for Monday Night Raw and Wednesday Night NXT. And every now and then I join our Colin Tessier on Fridays to wrap up SmackDown. Kevin, are we going to be doing a live show this Sunday after NXT?
You better believe it, dude.
And I'll be here for that too.
Yeah, so we just did a live programming meeting about what we're doing. So obviously this is like a Patreon's worth of content that we're developing for you. That is hours of stuff. Maybe you don't listen to all of it. Maybe you listen to some of it. Just pass it on. That's all we ask. All right. We're not doing the Patreon thing. We're not doing a paywall. I'm not reading dick pill commercials, and God bless people that are. I'm not challenging anyone who's doing that. All right.
I'd like to hear you read some dick pill commercials, though.
We wouldn't have Blue Chew. We would have we'd have Hugh Chew. It's off-brand Blue Chew.
Ooh,
right? Yeah,
I like that.
We would have that. Mm-hmm. So that we'd be off-brand everything. We would have man childscaped. We would
Black market Blue Chew.
Yes, we would have Black market Blue Chew and like the weird body shave stuff you can get at a CVS. We're gonna do ads for all that stuff.
I'll rub oil on my head and then I'll shave if you need to put stuff.
Exactly. We'll do all the beard products and all that crap.
Beard, yeah.
So you've been with us this long. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hope you guys are staying safe. Wear your mask. Keep your distance. The vaccine's coming, baby. Come on. Humanity's shaking them ropes. All right. We're getting up and we're going to boot that big nasty virus guy. And we're going to pick them up. And the whole crowd's going to go crazy with a bioslatum. The immovable object meets the undeniable force. Gorilla monsoon. Leg drop. 1, 2, 3. Son of a bitch. We're back at WrestleMania. We're drinking beers in a parking lot.
War Games.
The immunity rises to the top.
War Games. War Games. War Games. You had to get into there, John, right? We're going to be at War Games on Sunday. When watching wrestling, John, tell them what they got to do.
Enjoy every second of it.